Good morning. Welcome to East Rose Fellowship, everyone online and here in the chapel. We're happy you have chosen to join us today. I'm Phyllis Adams, your worship leader. Our speaker is our own Reverend Robin Zucker. Her sermon today is titled, Squid Games and the Death Knell of Debt. Before we go any further, I'd like to remind you to silence your cell phones or other noise-making devices. East Rose acknowledges that for at least 13,000 years, many tribes and bands have made their lives here, where our church, home, and our communities now exist. We remember and honor these people who made their homes in this land. The ones here now and those who lived here before. In peace, may we share this land and honor one another. Let's take a moment now and greet each other here today, both in the chapel and online. Please stand and face the cameras by the clock on the back wall and wave hello to our friends online. Next, turn to your neighbor and say hello. You enjoy the conversations, but there'll be plenty of time after the service to pick back up where you just left off. For our online guests, if you would like to share a joy or sorrow during that portion of the service, you can do so by entering it in the YouTube chat, and those will be shared aloud with everyone. I also encourage you to identify yourself in the chat so that we know who has joined us and we can acknowledge you today. Our call to worship is responsive reading number 521 in the gray hymnal. The words will also be on the screen. I'll read the yellow and you can respond with the white. May I be no one's enemy, and may I be the friend of that which is eternal and abides.
May I wish for every person's happiness and enemy none.
May I never rejoice in the ill fortune of one who has wronged me.
May God, to the extent of my power, give needful help to all who are in want.
May I never fail a friend.
May I respect myself.
May I always keep tame that which rages within me.
May I accustom myself to be gentle and never be angry with others because of circumstances.
May I know good people and follow in their footsteps. Our chalice lighting today, chalice lighting words are Abundance by Reverend Don Cooley. We light our chalice this morning, grateful for the gifts that we experience in this beloved community. May this chalice flame light the way for all who seek such abundance.
Thank you, Phyllis. Good morning, everyone. Our opening words today are by Khalil Gibran. Everything in life is good, even gold, if it teaches a lesson. Money is like a stringed instrument. He who does not know how to use it properly will hear only discordant music. Money is like love. It kills slowly and painfully the one who withholds it, and it enlivens the other who turns it upon its fellow man. Our opening hymn is number 124, Be That Guide. The words will be on the screen. Please rise as you are willing and able.
The story for all ages. We invite Tara and the young folks to come up.
Good morning. Today's story is called The Invisible. It's about a young girl whose family doesn't have much money, especially extra money for things like going to the movies, buying toys, or going out to eat. In fact, sometimes they don't have enough money to meet all of their basic needs, like nutritious food, warm clothes, or a place to live. Not everyone has these things. Sometimes, if we have everything we need, it's easy to forget that some of us don't have enough. Our 6th UU principle is about working together to make the world a better place. It says that we believe in working for a peaceful, fair, and free world. And that means helping to make sure that everyone has a fair chance to live a healthy and happy life. We want everyone to be treated fairly and have what they need to thrive. Poverty is not an easy problem to solve, but we can do things like share what we have, speak up for fairness, volunteer our time, and be kind so that no one becomes invisible. So here we go, The Invisible, written and illustrated by Tom Percival. Isabel pulled on her favorite jumper. Ice curled across the inside of the window and crept up the corner of her bedpost. It was very beautiful, and Isabel always noticed beautiful things. But there was no escaping that it was also cold, very cold. You see, Isabel's family couldn't afford to have the heating on. Isabel's family couldn't afford a lot of things, things that some people take for granted. But Isabel tried not to worry about the things she didn't have. After all, she and her family had everything that they needed. They had each other. But one day, there just wasn't enough money to pay the rent and all the bills. Isabel and her family had to leave their home, the house which held all their happy memories, and move to the far side of the city. For the first time ever, Isabel couldn't find anything beautiful to cheer herself up. This part of the city looked exactly how she felt: cold, sad, and lonely. A family drove past in a shiny car, but they looked straight through Isabel, as though she wasn't even there. None of the other smartly dressed people seemed to see her either. Isabel looked down and realized that she could barely see her own hands or her feet. She was fading away. Before long, Isabel was completely invisible. She drifted silently down the streets, as pale and thin as the wind, and nobody saw her at all. But now that Isabel was invisible, she noticed something she hadn't seen before. Other invisible people, lots of them. There was an old lady planting flowers in empty paint pots. There was the man who slept on a bench, feeding the birds in the park. And there was the boy who had been forced to leave his home in another country, helping to mend someone's bike. But they all seemed so alone. Isabel decided to help. She planted flowers in the paint pots. She looked after stray animals. And she helped to fix things up. Then day by day and week by week, other people joined in too. And the more people came together, the more they could all be seen. Soon, Isabel wasn't just visible, she was vibrant, and so was her new home. And that was how Isabel made something very special, one of the hardest things that anyone can ever make. Isabel had made a difference. At the beginning, I mentioned our 6th UU principle about working for a peaceful, fair, and free world. We are going to continue talking about that in our classroom, while Reverend Robin and the adults continue their conversation here. So if the people along the center aisle will join hands, we'll sing the children out. Thank you.
I'm going to invite you now into some quiet time together. Uncross your arms and put your feet on the floor. Put down any books you might be holding. See if you can open up your posture and your body in a way that invites spaciousness. And close your eyes. And one big exhale. Drop your shoulders and relax your jaw. And then begin some intentional breathing. 4 beats in slowly through your nose, and 5 or 6 beats out slowly through your mouth in a steady rhythm, creating spaciousness from the crown of your head down to the soles of your feet that are rooted to the ground, relaxing and opening yourself as you go. And we'll just breathe. And allow. Quietly come back to the room slowly. Do a few more rounds of breathing just to make the transition. See if your shoulders are still up and drop them. And one big exhale. Our quiet song is number 155, Circle Around for Freedom. We will remain seated and we will sing it through twice.
Money by Philip Larkin. Quarterly is it, money reproaches me. Why do you let me lie here wastefully? I am all you never had of goods. You could get them still by writing a few checks. So I look at others, what they do with theirs. They certainly don't keep it upstairs. By now, they've a second house and car and wife. Clearly, money has something to do with life. In fact, they've a lot in common. If you inquire, you can't put off being young until you retire. And however you bank, you're screwed. The money you save won't, in the end, buy you more than a shave. I listen to money singing. It's like looking down from long French windows at a provincial town. The slums, the canal, the churches, ornate and mad, in the evening sun, it is intensely sad. And Money is a Thing with Feathers by Susan Fierer. I wake to money and take my money slow. I watched for money, lights turned low. One must have a mind of money, money that is not there and the money that is. The art of money isn't hard to master. The money surrounds us. Sweet, 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 sweet money. Money on a wet, black bough. Do not go gentle into that good money. The pure products of money go crazy. Money sweeping out from us to disappear. Oh, money, my money, our fearful trip is done. I myself will die without money. Money, money, you bastard, I'm through.
Indian classic Gitanjali. The Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore tells this tale. Does this seem loud to you? Yeah. John, can you turn this down a little bit? Thanks. Tells this tale. It begins, "Prisoner, tell me, who was it that bound you?" "It was my master," said the prisoner. "I thought I could outdo everybody in the world in wealth and power, and I amassed in my own treasure house the money due to my king. When sleep overcame me, I lay upon the bed that was for my lord, and on waking up, I found I was a prisoner in my own treasure house. Prisoner, tell me, who was it that wrought this unbreakable chain?" "It was I," said the prisoner, "who forged this chain very carefully. I thought my invincible power would hold the world captive, leaving me in a freedom undisturbed. Thus, night and day, I worked at the chain with huge fires and cruel, hard strokes. When at last the work was done and the links were complete and unbreakable, I found that it held me in its grip." Tagore gives us a character who is imprisoned by his wealth and feels he cannot escape its grip. The prisoner could be a stand-in for members of our own society who have been captured by a relentlessly capitalistic drive to acquire more and more and more, even if it means taking on sizable, possibly crippling debt. America and the world, it appears, has a monumental debt problem. We are drowning in it, causing even more economic insecurity, wealth inequality, and personal shame and desperation. The average American holds $56,000 in personal debt and dies with an average of $75,000 of debt. Interest. Many have debts in the hundreds and thousands of dollars: cards, credit cards, homes, student loans, medical bills. And the American government has a whopping $34 trillion of debt. Perhaps this reality is one of the reasons the Netflix series Squid Game was so immensely popular and relatable. It was one of the most streamed series worldwide in 2021. Did any of you watch it? Oh, yeah. Then you'll understand. This show is not for the faint of heart or the squeamish, let me tell you that. Now, the premise of the show seems straightforward, yet below the surface storyline, it is a social commentary on the lengths some individuals might go to in order to expunge a debt that they would never be able to repay in their lifetime. This is a genuine crisis in South Korea, where the series was created and filmed. In the series, which has been criticized for its unapologetic, cold-eyed bloodletting, and as I said, it's not for the squeamish, 456 cash-strapped players in crippling debt have a chance to win a life-changing sum of money, roughly $40 million. All they have to do is play 6 rounds of familiar household children's games, such as marbles, tug of war, red light, green light, and a Korean children's diversion we're not really familiar with called Squid Game. And the last person standing gets the money. The thing is, only one of them will win the money because 455 losers will have met their death during the playtime. The game runner, an imposing figure in a geometric black mask, asks them if they want to go and live out their pathetic lives running from creditors or seize their last opportunity to be free of debt. And despite the odds, they stay in, and the field, of course, gets smaller and smaller, and there are many other dimensions to the story: relationships, mysterious characters, and many personal reckonings. There are small kindnesses and heart-rending betrayals of trust. It's really a fascinating exploration of how the drive to survive can absolutely fracture our moral foundations and lead us into rationalizations and actions that are questionable at best and appalling at worst. Of course, we've created the very conditions that lead to the desperation caused by debt. The prototypes of the characters in Squid Game should be familiar to us as individuals who have lost their jobs, those with unexpected and crushing medical debt, those living in high-cost areas who acquire sky-high mortgages beyond their means. In other words, many people who are struggling with debt end up acquiring more debt or paying astronomical interest rates because they don't have a choice. And when these people default on their loans, it plunges them into poverty even faster, creating an even wider gap between the haves and the have-nots. The poet Susan Fiver, in the poem we heard, laments that money is a thing with feathers, and how it does fly away. I myself would die without money, she concludes. Money, 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 you bastard, I'm through. In 2021, half of Americans lived on or near the poverty line. Think about that. Approximately 70% live paycheck to paycheck. This is certainly true of the former steel towns in the Mon Valley near my hometown of Pittsburgh. In the city of Duquesne alone, 80% of the school children live at or near the poverty line and receive free lunches. I live here now, and when I drive along residential streets in Portland and see the proliferation of unsheltered encampments or serve dinner at Blanchett House, and then come home and see an Instagram post of an 8-year-old celebrity offspring with a $25,000 handbag, the seamy side of our culture of consumption and callousness looms large. Sometimes I feel we've lost our way in a dark forest of side gigs, crypto get-rich schemes, megalomaniacal billionaires, and a pervasive deficit of perspective and empathy. Of course, not all rich people are evil or greedy, like the nameless and faceless organizers of the Squid Game death match. I did quite a bit of research on this sermon, and it turns out, I guess not that surprisingly, Bezos, Gates, Zuckerberg, they gave hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to charity this past year. Hundreds of millions. But the wealth divide in our country is increasingly depraved. I really can't think of any other word to describe it. In this land of plenty, there is plenty of waste. 1 in 6 American children face hunger issues, yet we waste $165 billion worth of uneaten food every year. There are thousands of inhabitable or rehabable empty dwellings all over this country, while 554,000 people live on the streets. It's really a soul sickness in our society and a genuine moral crisis, whether we've been born on first base or third base. As the star of the documentary film Inequality for All, Robert Reich, former labor secretary and one of America's foremost economists, spent years pre-pandemic circuit riding around the US, spreading the gospel about our increasing wealth gap and its impact on our democracy and our very decency. Now, of course, his rhetoric rose to a fever pitch during the Trump administration and their openly callous policies, coupled with the biggest transfer of power from the poor to the rich in American history. Reich tells us that folks often ask him, who does it better? To which he answers, we did from 1947 to 1977. But now we have the most unequal distribution of wealth in the world, with the 400 richest Americans owning more wealth than the bottom 150 million Americans combined. Wow. And you know, the pandemic didn't slow that down. Somehow, while the people were struggling, the ultra-wealthy Americans with $30 million and up suffered a small little setback and then rebounded, and scores of new billionaires were minted, while foreclosures and unemployment lines swelled. It may seem extreme to compare the experience of the fictional players in Squid Game to average Americans who are struggling with debt, but in actuality, the stress, anxiety, and health issues surrounding this level of debt are very, very real. And having your brain occupied by the fear surrounding your debt takes away a little bit of one's human capacity to reason and make wise decisions and feel a sense of well-being at all about one's life. Because crushing debt is dehumanizing. It may be gruesome to envision, but the global market for people selling their organs is booming and driven by debt. Can you imagine selling one of your kidneys in order to pay down a debt? Is this a moral issue, an economic one? Is it modernity? Is it something else? Economists who study this issue lift up a premise called the paradox of thrift. It goes like this. If individuals are thrifty, if they save more, spend less, squirrel away money for a rainy day, it might be good for that person, but it can be terrible for the national economy. If we save and don't spend or borrow, some local business may go under, even our bank. You're always hearing about economic stimulus. The thing is, our economy, it's designed to encourage us to not save, no matter how much leaders parrot talking points about how saving would benefit the citizenry. Not surprisingly then, much has been written about whether debt is a moral matter. While most economic activity is concerned with the is of how things are invested or consumed, debts are always entwined with the ought. We ought to repay. In discussing controversial debts, for example, government borrowing in the Eurozone and the US, the moral question should be addressed directly. Should these debts be paid off in full, or is some forgiveness justified? Look at the debate over student loans. That's what it is. Should they be paid off? Should there be some forgiveness? Should we look at predatory lending practices? Aristotle can help us frame this argument. The philosopher condemned all lending at interest because money cannot create wealth by itself. A loan is just a way for the lender to take advantage of the borrower. So this goes way back. Some proponents of Islamic finance make a similar argument, yet capitalism has shown that loans can indeed produce wealth. If the lent funds are invested well in housing or education or investments, enabling the borrower to improve their lot in the world, then interest payments are the lender's just reward for providing these fruitful funds. But Aristotle's moral logic remains relevant. His condemnation is appropriate for loans which do not share wealth justly between the borrower and the lender. Unfair loans should not be made, and where they have been, full repayment only compounds the original injustice. Squid Game sheds light on that very dark moral reality about predatory lending and how desperate people fall prey to it. Apparently in South Korea, consumer lending is so immoral that they will loan money to people they can never pay back, and they truly do become prisoners to their debt. So what happens to the winner in Squid Game? Only one person raised their hand, so most of you don't know. Well, he doesn't feel like a winner because of what he had to do to take home the prize. And spoiler alert, the final game is against his closest childhood friend, someone he played the innocent versions of these games with in their modest neighborhood. He feels guilty. He doesn't even want to spend the money. Eventually, he gives a lot of it away to surviving relatives of individuals he actually became close to during this perverse game. In some ways, the series has been decried for its graphic bloodshed, but it's also astonishingly about despair, love, conscience, and generosity. How do we get out of our own society's prison of debt and rampant consumerism alive? As I've preached before, study after study conclude that wealthy does not necessarily equal contentment beyond a certain level. Status does not equal fulfillment or even a sense of success. It lifts you above survival mode, but it doesn't buy you happiness. The lasting things of value seem to never change. Deep and sustained relationships, engagement beyond ourselves and our comfort zones, and meaning-making that serves other people. In a piece for the Free Press entitled The Great Enrichment or the Great Emptiness, the author Martin Gurry notes that we are more affluent than any other society in the history of the world. So why do so many of us feel empty? He does point out astutely that once survival is assured, a scramble begins for more. People seek property, they seek leisure, and they will borrow whatever they need to assure the outcome. Bringing this closer to home, East Rose leaders have expressed their pride that the congregation owns this building. They don't have to borrow or leverage, no mortgage. That is something to be proud of in this day and age. However, the balance to that freedom is the responsibility of stewardship. Once again, there's no free lunch in the free church. Now, don't misunderstand me. Not all debt is evil. I have debt, and I imagine many of you do too. Debt can enable us to build wealth and acquire property and education. I ask that we recognize the privilege that enabled us to have that borrowing in some cases, and that people of color and other marginalized groups have been historically prevented from these privileges. Even so, our collective Faustian bargain with debt is a soul sickness in America, whether, as I said, we are on first base or third. My colleague, the Reverend Marilyn Sewell, who served at First Unitarian in Portland for so many years, reminds us that a decent society feels the reverberation of income inequality and debt as a spiritual and personal wound, as those affected by poverty suffer with feelings of powerlessness, the loss of sense of self, the loss of historical participation. They are less likely to vote and feel that their voices matter at all. The moral imperative is there, given that the major world religions already include a spiritual practice of helping the needy. Tzedakah in Judaism, Dana in Buddhism, Seva in Hinduism, Zakat in Islam. What is our spiritual practice of charity, our moral imperative as Unitarian Universalists? First, our UU congregations must continue to be gathering places for such activity. According to the scholars Paul Ray and Sherry Anderson, we UUs are what are called core cultural creatives, a growing segment of the US population who embrace a culture that values diversity, stewardship of the environment, economic justice, and civil rights, and combine these values with some form of spiritual practice or religious affiliation. You can join the Good Trouble Gang here with Karen and Therese as our leaders. They'll be meeting next Sunday. You'll hear an announcement about that and many dates in the future. This is a way for us to UU the vote. The poor and the indebted will always be with us. As UUs, we need to continue showing up to build or rebuild that decent society with our voices and our votes, our compassion and our actions. The solution to our nation's malaise isn't more stuff or more debt. It's getting outside our comfort zones, loyalty, genuine human connections, because money can disappear in a minute. So I ask you as an invitation, not a scolding, what will be the pebble in your shoe when you leave here today? How are we going to think about these issues and work on them in real time? How might we savor the world and also save it? All minds, hearts, and ideas are welcome. And we will be exploring this topic more in a spiritual conversation session later, right after church today. Where will you invest your commitments, your loyalties, your emotional and practical capital? To whom will you voluntarily be indebted? What endures, and what will endure and have worth for you? May we rise together to be repairers of the breach. Blessed be, blessed we, and amen. Our closing hymn is number 121, We'll Build a Land. The words will be on the screen. We've written some slight alternate lyrics for the chorus that are slightly more gender inclusive. Please rise as you are willing and able.
All
when giving is all we have. One river gives its journey to the next. We give because someone gave to us. We give because nobody gave to us. We give because giving has changed us. We give because giving could have changed us. We have been better for it. We have been wounded by it. Giving has many faces. It is loud and quiet, big, though small, diamond in wood nails. Its story is old, the plot worn, and the pages too. But we read this book anyway, over and again. Giving is first and every time hand to hand. Mine to yours, yours to mine. You gave me blue, and I gave you yellow. Together, we are simple green. You gave me what you did not have, and I gave you what I had to give. Together, we made something greater from the distance. Half of each week's Sunday collection is shared with a local nonprofit. This quarter, we are sharing the basket with East County Rising Community Projects, a grassroots organization energizing East Multnomah County residents to create equitable, livable communities centering on underrepresented and marginalized people. If you attend online, you may donate by visiting our website and clicking the donate button, or you can scan the code on the screen. If you are a first-time visitor, please let the basket pass you by. You are our guest today. We now gratefully receive the gifts of this congregation. Together, we have enjoyed the warmth and beauty of stories, of this flame, and of this special community. As our chalice flame is extinguished this morning, we can still remember that its glow is carried within us. We can use our inner lights and this flame to kindle new sparks throughout our lives and in the world. May the spirit of peace and togetherness bless your lives.
Our benediction is by the Reverend Mark Bellatini. It's entitled, Go in Peace, Live Simply. Go in peace, live simply, at home in yourself. Be just in your word, just in your deed. Remember the depth of your own compassion. Do not forget your power in the days of your powerlessness. Do not desire with desire to be wealthier than your peers, and never stint your hand of charity. Practice forbearance in all you do. Speak the truth or speak not. Take care of your body. Be good to it. It is a good gift. Crave peace for all people in the world, beginning with yourselves, and go as you go with the dream of that peace set firm in your heart. Blessed be, blessed we, and amen.
Mary, that was lovely. And I'd also like to thank the other folks who helped put this service together today. John, our AV tech, our greeters, and of course, Reverend Robin. And Phyllis. And all of you who attended the service this morning. Thank you. I have a number of announcements. This Tuesday, the 16th at noon, we gather for lunch and learn. The focus will be the transcendentalists. Bring a brown bag lunch. We'll provide some beverages and cookies. The Creativity Circle will be back on the 23rd. I'm so sorry I missed that first one. Check pedals for the many trainings and offerings from the UUA's Pacific West region and for timely social justice activities you can join, as well as other announcements that I may not mention here today. On that note, we need 2 East Rose members to serve as our delegates at this year's all-online General Assembly, June 20th through the 23rd. If you're interested, please talk with Reverend Robin or with Cynthia Hopkins, our president. We have some funds to defray your registration costs. If you'd like to become a member of East Rose, please pick up an application from Sherry in the office. Reverend Robin will be including a new member ceremony in our service on May 5th. Members will be entitled to serve on the board and to vote at our annual meeting on June 2nd. The choir will be performing in the service again on June 2nd. There's still time to join in the singing and community. Please talk to Tyler Perez, our choir director. That's going to be a very special service. Another announcement. Volunteers are needed to help paint the chapel wall on Saturday, May 4th, starting at 9 a.m. Ryan Hall will supervise the effort and furnish all the paint and tools necessary. No experience needed. Ryan will show you what to do. Depending on the number of volunteers, the effort could last until late afternoon. We want to be finished in time for Sunday's service on May 5th, of course. That same day, and there is a sign-up sheet in the lobby today where you can volunteer to help paint the chapel wall. Come for any amount of time you can, no experience needed. That same day, May 4th, will be the plant exchange from 10 to 12, I believe. Keen. That's a not to miss opportunity to get your new plants and to bring things that you wanted to thin out a little bit. So, see you there. Also in the lobby is a get well card for John Hassenjaeger. You may have remembered that he had an ankle replacement recently and is not quite back together yet. So please sign and send John your good wishes. Join us next Sunday, April 21st at 12:30 for a special speaker. The title of her talk is What Was James Madison Thinking? Constitution 101, organized by our Good Trouble group. Invite friends. Questions? Ask Karen Pyle or Kim Smith.
Can I throw in, this is after the service, not in place of the service.
Yeah. East Rose Yard cleanup. That always comes up. And with the nice weather, it's a pleasure to get out on Saturday, April 20th from 9 to 12. All hands are welcome, says Keene. One final announcement. The Friendship Circle dinners are coming up on April 27th. You have until April 21st to sign up. If you have questions, please see Linda Schaldak. And I think that's all I have. That was a mouthful. So the service is now ended. If you're attending online, exit YouTube and connect to Cafe Conversations via Zoom. Those here at East Rose are invited to remain, have some coffee, and catch up on that visiting that you didn't have time to do during the greeting time. We hope to see all of you next week. Have a wonderful week.